this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now. You call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year. You can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
Did you know that parents rank teaching financial literacy as the toughest life skill? That's where Greenlight comes in, the debit card and money app made for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and track spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn how to earn, save, and spend responsibly, while parents have peace of mind, knowing smart money habits are being built with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/iHeart. That's greenlight.com/iHeart.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. Hey friends, Jackie and I just returned from CrimeCon, where we were able to discuss before a live studio audience the death of Ellen Greenberg. One of the great things about attending CrimeCon is that you're able to interact with like-minded people that are interested in forensics and death investigation. During our visit at CrimeCon this past weekend, Jackie and I were able to sit down with a live studio audience and discuss in detail the forensics. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Let's take a listen. Jackie and I have been talking about a case for quite a while now, and I'd say this case has probably gotten into our heart, certainly gotten into our mind, and kind of captured the attention of the entire country. And it's something that we've covered together. We've become friends, I guess, or acquaintances at least, with the family, Jackie in particular. But today we're going to talk about Ellen Greenberg. Ellen Greenberg. Jackie, what can you tell us about Ellen?
Ellen Greenberg was a teacher. She worked in an elementary school. Her kids loved her. And she was a bride-to-be. She was so excited. She had just sent out the save the dates on her wedding. And she was found in her home, in her apartment, stabbed more than 20 times in her front, in her back, and it was ruled a suicide. 22 stab wounds to her back, her head, her torso, and again, it was classified as a suicide. And Joe, I've got so many questions for you. People don't normally stab themselves in a suicide, do they?
No.
That's not common.
No, it's not. And, going back years and years, Jackie, working with the coroner in New Orleans and then working with the ME in Atlanta, all of the years that I was in my profession, I have to say that I think maybe I remember 2 cases where I had self-inflicted stab wounds. And both of those cases involved somebody that was in a severe psychotic moment. As a matter of fact, one of the individuals was a young man that was paranoid schizophrenic that was off of his medication. And when I say paranoid, he's paranoid. He was actually looking for a microphone in his forearm that he thought the CIA had planted. That gives you an idea. They talk a lot in this case about pain centers. This guy actually took a knife and opened his arm 32 separate times that we could count before he finally bled out. But can you actually call that a suicide? So to frame this is very rare. And just so you understand my background, where I come from in the medical legal world, which is not, I don't have a narrow spectrum of looking at simply homicides. We, at medical examiner's coroner's office, we're interested in all deaths, all five manners, homicide, suicide, accidental, natural, undetermined. All of that is intellectually stimulating to us, and we have to make those determinations. But Jackie, contrary to what you see on television, you see all these gruesome homicides out there. Did you know that most people at medical examiner's offices and coroner's offices, we handle a 3-to-1 suicides to homicides. We are absolute. I don't claim to be an expert in much, but when it comes to suicide investigation, it's our bailiwick. That's what we do. We look into suicides all the time, and actually they're more difficult than homicides because many times you just don't have a witness. You don't have a note. That's atypical. But in Ellen's case, I got to tell you, over 20 sharp force injuries she sustained, including, if everybody will place your hand on your right parietal area, this large bone right in this area, and make a motion downward, just like this, generally about 3 to 4 inches. There was a large gaping, incised wound right here, almost like someone had taken a blade and just drug it all the way down to the bone. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, how many of you guys in the audience have actually ever hit your head on something? You raise up too quick and you realize how painful that is. Ellen had this injury, not to mention a flurry of injuries in her back, in her chest. The knife was found buried here. She even had 2 stab wounds that went into her spinal process. One even touched the dura, which is the sleeve that covers the spinal cord, and there was no hemorrhage. You guys are amateur sleuths. Many of you know what that means. If there's no hemorrhage, what does that tell us? That's probably a post-mortem injury. So that's what we're dealing with in this class, in this case. And just so that you know, this case has been ruled a suicide.
So I think you actually had it right when you called it this class, because you're going to teach us a whole bunch. So let's look at how she was stabbed. We know she was in her kitchen. She was making a fruit salad. So if you look at an instrument, the knife that you would use to cut a fruit salad, you're looking at a paring knife.
Paring knife, yeah.
A kitchen knife. If you're at my house, you're using a regular kitchen knife. What kind of a blade? We know they found one, and you're going to talk about that in a minute. But what kind of a blade is it going to take? Let's just say this injury in her head. What kind of blade is it going to take to make that kind of an injury?
Well, first off, it's going to take a tremendous amount of pressure, and you have to be committed to it. This is not something that it's not a superficial kind of a braided area that you're looking at. You're literally talking about, and we know it's not blunt force trauma because that's a strike. Blunt force, you get a laceration. People don't understand the difference between lacerations and incised wounds. A laceration results from blunt force trauma, and you'll get something that's called tissue bridging. where the skin actually begins to kind of tear apart a little bit, and you get these little sinewy pieces of tissue that aren't clean cut like you get with a milled blade. This is actually a sharp force injury. The knife that was buried in her chest was actually, I think, 8 inch or 6 inch, 8 inch. It was an 8 inch serrated steak knife, or a knife that could be used as a carving knife. It was separate from the actual steak knives, but it was a serrated edge. That gives a very particular appearance. The knife block that you have in the kitchen was actually overturned. It still only had 3 knives in it. There were still 2 knives in the sink, and there was water in there. One blade, to me, when I saw the crime scene images, looked like it had blood on it. And it was a smooth-edged knife. It was like a butchering knife, like you would carve a turkey with, for instance. And then, of course, you had the serrated blade that's buried in her chest. And, you know, I got to go down this road just a second, because many people think, you know, when you think about a suicide, most people think, well, what would be the quickest, least painful way to go about this? And Jackie made a fantastic point. She's cutting up a fruit salad. There were blueberries, there were those little bitty oranges, and there were a couple of other items that were there that were in the sink that she had been cutting. And it struck me, I began to think about this as I began to examine this case. Okay, so you're standing at the sink, and suddenly you decide, you know what, I think this is an excellent time to stab myself over 20 times. Yeah. And it was absolutely mind-blowing to me. And when I say that, you know, I talked about how infrequent these cases happen. You know, you think about gunshot wound in the head, that's very frequent in suicides. Most people think that it's going to be, say, for instance, number 2 is going to be like an OD. That's not. In my little slice of the world, it has consistently been hanging. Very frequently, and it's not, they don't have to be suspended. You get various types of hangings that occur. And what do we all have in our home? Well, some of you guys are wearing belts. I've seen people do it with a pair of jeans, sheets, all kinds of things. Hanging's very, very common. Then we have people that will OD, certainly.
Right.
And then you have carbon monoxide. Way down on the list is a self-inflicted stab wound. 20 of them.
Okay, but I got a really good question.
Yeah.
You said that this wound here was a 3 to 4 inch gash. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of a knife are you going to have that's going to make a gash like that?
Well, it would have to.
Let me finish.
Okay. Go ahead.
I got a particular point I want to make.
Okay. All right.
Because if you went through the bone, it's bone. You're not just going to go stab and pull, because you can't do that through a bone, correct?
No, and it didn't actually go into bone. It kind of glided over the surface, but it went, this is what we call in forensics, this is what's referred to as a full thickness injury. So if you just touch your scalp right now, and it kind of compresses, and you can take your hair and move your scalp around, all that sort of thing. The thickness of your scalp is going to be dependent upon
that's why it's serrated.
It will literally cut just about anything, and it did in this case.
Okay, the other point that you brought up a minute ago was the fact that there was a blade in the sink that you think, that you opine, as you say, that had blood on it. And then we have, I didn't mention it earlier, but when Ellen was found, she still had a blade in her chest. Okay? Now, given that there were 2 blades, is she going to stab herself for a while and go, oh, wait a minute, let me change blades here?
No. I got to tell you, this is what I think. Her body was found. Look, they throw all kinds of fancy terms at you. Here's a fancy medical term that some of you may have not heard. Maybe you have. I know I've got people in medicine here. They use the term supine, and supine essentially means face up. Okay, but she wasn't in a classically supine. It's kind of what they refer to as a modified position, where she is in her kitchen she's got, if you imagine your cabinets at home, she's got a lazy Susan in one of the corners. She's kind of leaning up against this in supine, which means she's face up, but her shoulders and the back of her head are contacting the surface like this. So she's kind of slid down. You mentioned uses of multiple blades. The blood really doesn't extend out any further than this location where she was found. You've got some contact blood that's there. You've got some swipes that are there. And very interesting, you've got these kind of gravitational drops of blood that kind of are on the outer perimeter. You can see these, they're very striking. The outer perimeter of her body, and this is consistent with somebody or an individual that is standing there. Just imagine, how many of you guys have ever had a bloody nose? Bloody nose in the audience? You have a bloody nose and it's like, oh my God, I got a bloody nose. And your first thing is not to sling your head around. Many people will stand still. And if you look at the blood, how it drops directly down, blood drops in a sphere. And then when it impacts, you'll have this kind of, depending upon the surface it hits, it'll have kind of a modified circular shape to it if it's going straight down. This doesn't have a lot of energy. You've got multiple of these drops, and it's almost consistent. Let me stand up just a second. With an individual standing with a bloody blade in their hand and standing in this position. If you've ever had a paintbrush in your hand and it's wet with paint, how it drips down, same principle. And it lines the body all the way around here. And this is outside of her body. She never touched it. It was away from her body. So how exactly did that happen? And when you've got this many injuries, can you imagine the pain that she was experiencing? You would think that she would be thrashing around. There'd be blood contact all over the place. It was limited to that location.
Well, I got another point about where she was sitting. Again, she was sitting in her kitchen, leaned up against the countertop. If I am stabbing myself, am I just going to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to sit here while I die? I mean, I just can't imagine that all of a sudden she just decided to sit down.
You know, that's an excellent point, but I got to back up just a second, because when you really begin to think about this, why is it that you would choose to do this in this particular place and use this methodology? Because it's no secret. Ellen was under a lot of pressure. You know, she just sent out wedding invitations. She was a school teacher. Lord knows that's enough pressure in the world. I'm married to one. I know it's. God bless all the teachers out there. God bless y'all. But she had anxiety. She was on multiple different types of anti-anxiety medication. And you think she had wine. Well, why not? I mean, what do they always tell you? Don't mix drugs and wine. And you've got anti-anxiety medication. Why not just take a handful of these pills and wash it down with Chardonnay or whatever it is that you have? Why is it that you're going to take a blade and drive it into your body multiple times, and your intent, according to the authorities, is to take your own life? Let me tell you something. With knife wounds, there are no guarantees, because you don't know if you're going to strike a vital area. And a lot of the injuries she has, she's got multiple superficial injuries where it looks like the tip of the blade has been driven just under her skin and held there just for a minute. And these populate her back. They populate her chest. And I hadn't even gotten to one of the most gruesome injuries she has, which, other than this, and of course the ones in the back of her skull, she had been stabbed in her liver. Now, if you'll take your right hand and find the bottom of your rib cage on the right side, okay, that approximates the location of your liver. Now, the liver is one of the most vascular organs in the body. So if you insult this area, the moment you insult that area, you will get an infusion of blood. It doesn't have the ability. You think, well, there's a hole in the body. It doesn't. Literally, your internal organs will be floating in blood. When we open bodies up, for instance, that have liver injuries, copious amounts of blood occupy the abdominal cavity. But not only that, when she stabbed herself, or was stabbed, or it just happened by miracle, I don't know, this injury in her chest, not only does it clip the aorta of her heart, the major vessel that comes off, it also got the upper left lobe of her lung. So now she's got what's referred to as pleural effusion. So she's leaking out blood into her pleural spaces. And essentially, her lungs are being compromised. Her ability to breathe is being compromised. So it's in this, the more blood that comes out, the more labored this becomes.
Okay, I'm going to pull a Nancy Grace on you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. What he just said was her body cavity was filling up with blood, not her lungs filling up with blood. And that was what was keeping her from being able to breathe. not that her lungs were full of blood, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, there's another fancy term. Nancy hates these terms when I throw them out. We call it exsanguination. It's a fancy term for bleeding out. And you bleed out internally, and that's what's happening to her. Just imagine she's kind of slipping into this kind of milky, semi-conscious state because she's not, what does our brain require? What? Oxygenated blood. Well, you've clipped the aorta, which is just pumping out huge volume of blood, even the smallest little nick, because of all of that pressure that's involved when this is going on. So the chest cavity is filling up with blood. She's bleeding out of her, what did we say? Her liver, right? What's happening with the brain? All this time becoming disoriented, just kind of slipping off into unconscious. But you know, the thing about it is that there would have been such a level of excruciating pain with all of these insults that she had sustained, all of these injuries. You really think, how was she capable when her BP is dropping, the level of oxygenated blood in her body is dropping? How was she able to go ahead and facilitate all of this? It's striking, isn't it?
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. When Dr. Sabah and I decided to do a skincare line together, he said to me, we are going to give women meaningful beauty. And I said, that's exactly right. We want to give women meaningful beauty, which means each and every product is meaningful. It has a reason to exist. It's efficacious. You're going to get results. And then you just go out and live your life.
Meaningful Beauty. Confidence is beautiful. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now. You call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
One of the other things I want to talk about in the kitchen before we go on and talk about some really interesting things with those stab wounds is the fact that when the police looked at her body, there was a line of blood, okay? And as Joe's been describing, she's sitting up. So you would think that line of blood on her face would be like this. It's not. It's horizontal. So I don't know about laws of gravity much, Joe. You can take over here, but it's really not plausible that if she was in this position, that she has this kind of bloodline.
Yeah, you've got blood that's emanating from the external ear canal here. And it gives us pause to think as an investigator when you show up at a scene and you see blood streaked in the opposite direction in which the body is observed or appreciated at that point in time. It gives us pause to think, well, was she capable of moving? Or did somebody move her body after death, and the orientation of the blood and the original flow of the blood was compromised? So it presents in a different viewpoint when you take a look at it, and you think you can't explain it when you look at it, but you think this has to be explained because, as we all know, and I can confirm this, I've been around a lot of dead bodies. Dead bodies don't just get up and move themselves. So you have to ask the question, was she still alive at that point? Was she in some kind of perimortem state? That's that moment between antemortem and postmortem where you're in the throes of death. But would she have still had the ability to move around at that point in time? I've seen people thrash around at scenes. I've seen people bathed in blood as a result of gunshot wounds, multiple gunshot wounds. But with her, there's none of that. You don't have like this super saturated scene here. It's absent some things.
But here's the other point of that. If she had still been able to move, which means her heart would have still been pumping, which means this blood would still be flowing, so that when she sat up, if she had been lying down, then this blood should have not been dry and would have ran down the side of her face.
It would have ran down the side of her face, or maybe, depending upon how she's oriented, down to the back of her head. So you can only speculate at that point in time as to what may have taken place in that kind of nebulous moment that no one can seem to peg down here. And the investigators were never able to actually peg down that at the scene and do a sufficient job of explaining. And the only sign at the scene of any kind of forced entry that had taken place was, and keep in mind, this is on the 6th floor of an apartment building in Philly. There's snow on the ground outside. As a matter of fact, there had just been a snowstorm.
And no balconies.
And no balcony. There's like a window that you can look out, and kind of it's not even a Juliet balcony. There's like an area where you can kind of hold on and look down. There's no footprints in the snow down below. So whoever gained access to this apartment came through the door.
Yeah, one entryway.
Yeah, and there's one entryway in this environment. There's nothing stolen. There's no signs of struggle. We don't have broken furniture. All of the valuables were there. Her keys are there. Her pocketbook is there. Money is there. Everything is there. There's no indication that there was anything nefarious relative to property theft that was going on here.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the stab wounds. We certainly want to address whether or not this one major stab wound in her neck was done before she died or after she died. The thing that keeps getting me as we talk about this case is the fact is if you look, I can barely reach around to the back of my head. How do you stab yourself in the back? Number one, some of these injuries were upward. They were not like you're holding a knife and stabbing yourself in this manner. Some of them are done upwards.
Yeah.
How long does your arm have to be able to do this, and how flexible? I couldn't do it.
Well, here's the key to this, and when you review the autopsy report, the forensic pathologists, they never measured her arms. And one of the things that we do at autopsy is that you do a measurement from essentially the shoulder to the ACF, it's the antecubital fossa, right here in the bend of your arm. Then you do a measurement from the shoulder to the wrist, from the shoulder to the fingertips. Now, wouldn't you guys think that if you're talking about somebody that had self-inflicted over 20 stab wounds, that you would have arm measurements? You would know what the dominant hand was. None of this stuff comes up at autopsy. It's never measured. It's never examined. I want everybody to extend your dominant hand. What's your dominant hand? Stick it out and try to reach over your shoulder and please, this is horrible, but just imagine, make the stabbing motion and think about holding an 8-inch blade and trying to inflict down your spine, your shoulder blades, and then a couple of really deep injuries into the back of the neck that actually communicate with the spinal column. How is that possible? How can you actually do that? And then, the thing about the dead, after they have left the autopsy room, after the funeral home has come and picked them up, Elvis has left the building. We're in Vegas, right? Elvis has left the building. At that point in time, either the body is going to be embalmed and buried. You can't examine the body again. Or the body's been cremated, even worse. You can't go back and kind of retroactively take a look at this, and this is a big miss in this case.
It is, plus with Ellen's religious beliefs, her body was handled in death very quickly.
Very, very quickly. Ellen's family is Jewish, and so one of the tenets, and it varies. I've worked many cases involving individuals that were Jewish, and the idea is to have the body buried before sunset. And so everything has to happen very, very quickly in cases like this. And so that compromises your ability in order to glean as much information as you can and collect as much evidence as you can.
This idea that the neck wound that would have severed her spinal cord.
Mm-hmm.
We have expert testimony that this happened after she died, post-mortem.
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah, there was kind of a slip of the lip when the family began to depose people in this case. They had an associate medical examiner that worked for the same medical examiner's office that had actually done the autopsy. And she just happened to say, well, in my opinion, this autopsy, this insult that she had sustained to her spinal cord, that's a postmortem injury. There's no focal areas of hemorrhage. And it's one of those moments in time where I think that probably they wanted to, have you ever done something in your life where you feel like, wow, I wish I could get that back just for a second? I think that in this case, they wish that they had gone back and been able to grab that. But it's out there. It's floating about. And this isn't just some kind of random physician. This is a board-certified forensic pathologist that made this determination that actually said that this is a postmortem insult that she has sustained. So, again, you're left to have to explain how does this young woman sustain these types of injuries and how do they happen without any manifestation of hemorrhage in this particular area. And at the end of the day, it's kind of chilling. To boot, I think Dr. Cyril Weck and another physician got involved and began to examine the reports, everything that was left behind. And one physician, it wasn't Dr. Weck, but Dr. Weck, he said out of all the cases that I've handled, this is inconsistent with a suicide. Dr. Weck, God bless him, he's handled more cases than anybody. This other physician that looked at it also made an interesting point as well. He said in reviewing the autopsy images and the reports, he noted that there were focal areas of hemorrhage on the neck and what he believed was actually a fingernail mark on the neck, which is very unique. If you will take your fingers, most people don't ask you to do this, and look down the long axis of your fingernail. People talk about scratch marks on bodies. I'm going to give you a real quick tutorial here. You look at the tips of your fingers, and you see how they're crescent-shaped like this, so that when there is an impression that is made, say for a contact with a fingerprint mark, it's going to leave a crescent shape in that area. Now, in addition to that, if there is a fight going on, I equate it to a plow running over an unplowed field. You'll get kind of this furrowing that takes place where you look and you'll see these so-called scratch marks. That's one of the reasons why at autopsy on the deceased we do nail trimmings, we do nail scrapings, and then we do nail trimmings. And all that stuff can go in and be examined for skin and any kind of DNA. But, I think that it would have been very, very important at that point in time that anybody that had had contact with Ellen's body, anybody in the immediate circle should have looked at their fingernails, You should have looked at their hands to see if there were any kind of defensive wounds on any potential perpetrators here. And to that point, I don't know that that's ever been done.
What about any slice marks on her hand? Because if she is stabbing herself, the knife's going to get slippery. And it's possible as you are stabbing, the knife slips on the handle, and she might have cut herself. Were there any of those?
No, you can't appreciate that. But there was one other thing that they did find, and that was on the upper arm. There were fresh contusions there as well.
Bruises.
Nancy.
Yes.
Contusions, bruises. Yes, you're right. And one of the things we do with contusions, and this is very important for any of you guys that follow like child abuse investigations. One of the things that my colleagues in that field do, we do things called aging of bruises. Everybody's had a bruise. If it's red and swollen, that's kind of recent. It goes to that kind of black color, blue color, and that's 2 to 3 days out, and then it turns that slimy yellow, then to green, and then it resolves. And there were injuries on her, but they were at different ages, Jackie. She had insults on her arm, on her leg, that were at different ages.
Okay, how are we going to know that again? Tell me how are we going to know that?
Again, they're grading these, they're looking at these, and because of the color changes, that means that the body is healing, all right? And you're going to get these different points of color along this healing continuum that it'll change. So when we go to grade these injuries, we look at them, and it can kind of give us a timetable as to what's going on in that person's life at that moment in time. Most of the time, we talk about this in the context of small children. If they're sustaining abuse, how long has this been going on? They've got various healing injuries. Contusions, bruises are one of the things that we look at. And with her, you had various injuries that were consistent with having been going on for a long time. The next question you have to ask is, well, you automatically don't default to homicide. You think, well, did she have problems with her gait? Was she bumping into anything? Was she disoriented? Did she have a problem with alcohol? Did any of this stuff happen that would compromise her ability to ambulate anywhere, to make it around anywhere? There's no indication of that.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. When Dr. Sabah and I decided to do a skincare line together, he said to me, we are going to give women meaningful beauty. And I said, that's exactly right. We want to give women meaningful beauty, which means each and every product is meaningful. It has a reason to exist. It's efficacious. You're going to get results. And then you just go out and live your life.
Meaningful Beauty. Confidence is beautiful. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements.
connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
Are you a fraud-paying American? It's a fact that 1 in 4 honest, hard-working, tax-paying Americans has been a victim of identity theft. With LifeLock Identity Theft Protection, though, if your identity is stolen, they fix it, guaranteed, and get you your money back. Last year, the IRS flagged over $16 billion in refunds for identity fraud. That's billions of dollars that could come from your salary, overtime, or second job. But this year, you don't need to stay a victim. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second for your personal information and alerts you to threats you could easily miss on your own. And if your information does fall into the wrong hands, only LifeLock has U.S.-based restoration specialists who are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package. Because this tax season, fraud-paying American is something no American should have to claim. Visit LifeLock.com/iHeart and save up to 40% your first year. That's 40% off at LifeLock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
The other thing that interests me, and there's just so much, I just am absorbed by this case. If I stub my toe, something that simple, I am out for the count. It is so painful. You got to sit on the bed. You got to do something, right? You hit your knee, you hit your elbow, your funny bone, and you are down. How painful did it have to be stabbed this many times for one, and after one, wouldn't you stop because it just hurt?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I don't want to say the gentleman's name, but the individual that had noted the insults on the neck, he is also a neuropathologist, which means he studies the brain. He has an understanding of pain centers and all this, and he started talking about the level of pain that Ellen would have been enduring as a result of these individual little insults on her body, that it would almost have been intolerable. And so when you begin to think about this, how much pain could you stand? You talked about striking your toe.
Not at all.
Or hitting your funny bone. There ain't nothing funny about it, right? And so you begin to hit all of these areas and everything. The pain would be so very intense that you take this out to this point where you have sustained all of these injuries. How is it that she could tolerate that level of pain, and not to mention the spinal cord?
Yeah.
Because that's been compromised as well.
There's one other vital piece of evidence in this room that we can talk about that's not got anything to do with the body, and that's the door. Mm-hmm. I don't know if your rooms have these locks on them here, but Ellen's door had a safety catch on it. You know, it looks like a V. It's got a little knob, and her door, when her boyfriend, who she was living with, he went downstairs to work out. When he came back, started banging on the door because he couldn't get in because this lock was engaged. He started calling, he started texting because he couldn't get in the door. In the end, he said he had to break the door down. And I know that you have just done a great reenactment, Joe, trying to recreate what happened with this door. Can it be done? Could you, in essence, knock down this solid front door with that kind of a lock on it?
No, and not have it intact. And everybody knows the type of lock if any of you guys, I don't know about Paris. I'm staying in Bali's. My room in Bali's has got a gate lock. It's just swings. Everybody's ever stayed in a hotel, you know these things. If you're going to force your way through that door, the anchor in and of itself, either how it's anchored into the door or how the gate is anchored into the frame, the thing would have splintered. It would have absolutely splintered the contact points there. That's not what happened. It's slightly pulled away, and there's evidence of that at the scene. But the ability to actually knock this thing in and not pull it out of frame, and even if you open it enough, how many of you guys have ever tried to open the door with the gate lock in place and you can kind of peer through it, like this? You can't squeeze through it. I certainly couldn't squeeze through it. There's no way you could get access to it. So that leaves us, thinking, well, how has this thing still remained this intact and didn't splinter into 1,000 pieces if what he is saying is accurate?
Does anybody have any questions for Joe?
When my children were little and we used to do our timeshare at Park City, Utah, they had those kind of latches on the door, and we would have 2 rooms together. And then the kids would get in the other room, shut the door, and then that room was locked just like that with that kind of lock. At Marriott did have a tool that could come in, push it open, undo it with doing no damage at all, and open the door really quickly.
Well, there has been damage to this door. Again, the
But anyway, it can be done without kicking the door in.
Where it was anchored in has been splintered away, but it wasn't splintered away to the point where it had destroyed the door. I think that it would require a special tool. I know there are any number of people that have tried to reenact this case using dental floss, sewing thread, and also rubber bands. And there's one guy that used to, I think he was like a professional thief, and he demonstrated how to get into one of these things, defeat the lock with a rubber band. So I don't know. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about the blood on her cheek being moved. Did they ever check where the lividity went in her body, if she'd been moved that way?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. One of the things we look for is the settling of blood. This is called postmortem lividity. Gravity grabs blood, it pulls it to the lowest point. Her lividity pattern was consistent with the position that she was seated in. It was dependent on her backside. Yes, ma'am. It's a good question.
Anybody else? Did they ever determine her dominant hand or the dominant hand
right hand
of her fiance?
No.
They don't know.
Again, that's information that hasn't been released. This lady had a question back here.
I was just wondering, did they ever test for DNA under her fingernails to see if
that's an excellent question. One of the things that they talked about, and they made a big deal out of this in the autopsy report. And again, this is going back several years. This is before the status of DNA that we have right now. But they made a big deal out of the fact that they tested the knife. And of course, the knife is bathed in her blood. There's blood everywhere. But they said there's no other blood on the knife or nobody else's DNA. Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Just because there is an absence of DNA on an instrument of death doesn't exclude anybody. Because first off, if you had another person's blood, I'm not talking about touch DNA, just talking about blood, you would have a commingling of the blood, and they would be able to see that. There was no evidence of that. And also, contrary to popular opinion, when somebody wields a sharp force injury, there is no guarantee that the perpetrator is necessarily going to injure themselves while using the knife, particularly if it's a dominant person that's up against a small person. She only weighed like 130 pounds. She's not overwhelming in size. Anybody that could come in and dominate her, they might not insult themselves. They might not cut themselves. So it's a red herring to say that there was no one else's blood on the knife.
Okay, we get time for one more question.
Good question.
Hi. So assuming that it is a possible homicide, have there been any other suspects that have been investigated?
No, not to the best of my knowledge. I think that from a death investigation perspective, I'd want to know who lives in the building, obviously. Hopefully they ran down all those leads. There is no indication, one of my first, as a death investigator, one of the first things I think, if I have a woman that is brutalized like this is very intimate. I'm going to think that there's a sexual motivation, there's a relational motivation, because this is a lot of anger. So, back to the building, I'd want to know if there were any individuals that had been stalking her, wanting to know if any sex offenders lived any sex offenders with violent past. And I'm hoping that the Philadelphia Police Department ran those leads down or explored all of that. That information has not been released, though.
Let me add a very important point here. Please, you can go on Facebook and do Justice for Ellen if you're interested in helping out in this case, because they are trying, her family have been working all of these years to have this case changed from a suicide to undetermined. They can continue their investigation if it's classified as undetermined. And so far, 3 times it's gone before the appropriate authorities, and it's still yet unchanged.
Okay, guys. Hey, thank you all for listening to Body Bags. I really appreciate it. Come visit us at our booth. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this has been Body Bags. Y'all have fun, okay? Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
Running my small business was like playing basketball 5-on-1, and I was the one. Now, QuickBooks gives me access to a team of AI agents and trusted experts for the assists I need. Nothing but net.
Outdo it with Intuit QuickBooks. Feature availability varies by product.
Are you a fraud-paying American? 1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has been a victim of identity fraud. With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Last year, billions in refunds were stolen. Could be from your salary, overtime, or second job. Gone. But this year, you don't need to stay a victim, because this tax season, fraud-paying American is something no American should have to claim. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
Owning a home is full of surprises. Some wonderful, some not so much. And when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. That's why HomeServe exists. For as little as $4.99 a month, you'll always have someone to call. A trusted professional ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. That's homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
Picture chicken nuggets in your head. Okay, now forget them. Because Taco Bell's crispy chicken nuggets are here. And they're nothing like the nuggets you know. All white meat chicken, coated in tortilla chips for that signature Taco Bell crunch. A nugget like that calls for a sauce that can keep up. Introducing Hidden Valley Diablo Ranch. The iconic ranch you love, fired up with Taco Bell Diablo sauce. Bold meets bolder. Ranch meets Diablo, and it works. Crispy chicken nuggets from Taco Bell, a brand new classic. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only, while supplies last.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.